They say revenge is a dish best served cold. I never understood that phrase until the night I watched my wife get ready for a date with another man. Makeup perfect, wearing a dress I'd never seen, humming softly as she prepared to destroy our 5-year marriage. She had no idea I knew where she was going. She had no idea who would be waiting for her. And she certainly had no idea that by morning she'd lose everything she'd taken for granted. My name is Ryan Mitchell, and until 3 weeks ago I thought I had it all figured out. 31 years old, senior project manager at Davidson Construction, married to my college sweetheart Shannon for 5 years. We had the suburban dream, a 3-bedroom colonial in Maple Heights, 2 cars in the driveway, and enough money in savings to feel secure about the future. Shannon and I had made the decision together that she'd stay home after we married. She'd been working as a receptionist at a dental office, but when I got promoted and my salary jumped significantly, we agreed it made more sense for her to focus on making our house a home. Maybe start a family in a few years, once I made senior project manager. It felt traditional, stable, right? Our routine was comfortable in the way that 5-year marriages can be. I'd leave for work at 7:30, Shannon would have coffee ready and kiss me goodbye at the door. Evenings were predictable. Dinner together, some television, maybe a glass of wine on the porch if the weather was nice. Weekends meant errands, house projects, the occasional date night at Marcello's, our favorite Italian place downtown. Nothing extraordinary, but it was ours. The most important person in my life besides Shannon was my younger brother Jake, who was 28. He was everything I wasn't. Spontaneous, charming, the kind of guy who made friends with bartenders and strangers at coffee shops. He lived just 2 blocks away in a converted duplex, close enough that we saw each other constantly. Most evenings after work, one of us would text the other about grabbing a beer. Weekends, we'd help each other with projects, me fixing his leaky faucet, him helping me install new shelving in the garage. Jake wasn't just my brother. He was my best friend. My confidant, the person I called when work stressed me out or when I needed advice about Shannon. Speaking of Shannon, I'd noticed she'd been restless lately. Not unhappy exactly, but bored. She'd joined some online communities for women who stayed home, housewife groups. She called them, scrolling through her phone more frequently, laughing at posts I couldn't see. When I'd ask what was funny, she'd just say it was friend stuff and keep scrolling. She'd mentioned being lonely during the day, wishing she had more purpose beyond keeping house and waiting for me to come home. I tried to be understanding. I promised that once I got the promotion I'd been working toward, senior project manager came with a $30,000 raise, we'd have more money for vacations, experiences, maybe even think about starting a family. Things would get better, I assured her. I just needed her to be patient a little longer. Last Thursday changed everything, though I didn't realize it at the time. I came home around 6:15, earlier than usual because we'd finished the foundation pour ahead of schedule. Shannon was in the living room, freshly showered, wearing a dress I'd never seen before. Black, fitted, the kind of thing she wore when we went somewhere special. Her hair was styled, makeup perfect, and she smelled like the expensive perfume I'd bought her for Christmas. "You look beautiful," I said, kissing her cheek. "Are we going somewhere?" She seemed startled for a moment, quickly closing whatever she'd been looking at on her phone. "Oh, no, I just felt like getting dressed up," she replied. You know, for myself. It struck me as odd, getting fully dressed up to sit alone at home, but I didn't push it. Shannon had always been particular about her appearance. Maybe she was fighting the boredom by putting more effort into herself. That seemed healthy. We had dinner, watched a movie, went to bed. Everything normal, until 9:30 when the doorbell rang. I answered it to find Jake standing on my porch, his usually easy smile replaced by something I'd never seen. Before, a mixture of dread and determination that made my stomach clench immediately. Jake had never looked at me like that before. Like he was carrying a secret that could destroy everything I'd built. "We need to talk," he said quietly. "And you're not going to like what I have to say." Jake didn't speak until we'd walked 3 blocks from the house, far enough that Shannon couldn't possibly overhear us, even if she came outside. The silence stretched between us, filled only by the sound of our footsteps on the sidewalk and the distant hum of evening traffic. My mind raced through possibilities. Was Jake in trouble? Had something happened to our parents? Why did he look like he was about to deliver devastating news? Finally, we reached Riverside Park, the small playground where we'd spent countless hours as kids. Jake sat heavily on one of the benches, running his hands through his hair in a gesture I recognized. He only did that when he was deeply stressed. "Ryan, I need to tell you something, and I don't know how to say it without it sounding insane," he began. The knot in my stomach tightened. "Just say it, Jake," I replied. He pulled out his phone, stared at the screen for a moment, then looked up at me with misery in his eyes. "I downloaded Tinder a few weeks ago. I know, it's stupid. I'm just bored and dating has been impossible lately. But that's not the point. The point is," he paused, took a shaky breath. "The point is I matched with Shannon." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What?" I responded. "I matched with Shannon," he repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. "On Tinder, your wife." "My sister-in-law." "That's impossible," I answered automatically, my brain rejecting the information. "Shannon doesn't have Tinder. She's not even on social media except Instagram." "Ryan," he started. "Show me," I interrupted, my voice harder than I'd intended. "Show me right now because you're wrong. It's a fake profile. Someone's using her pictures." Jake's hands shook slightly as he opened the app and found the profile. He handed me the phone and my world tilted off its axis. There she was, my wife. 4 photos I recognized from her Instagram. One from our vacation to the beach last summer. One from her birthday dinner in March. A selfie from last week when she'd been trying out a new makeup look. The name read Shannon, 28, lying about her age by 3 years. Location, 5 miles away. But the part that made me physically ill was the bio. Single and looking for someone who knows how to appreciate a woman. Love wine, good food, and great conversation. Swipe right if you can make me laugh. Single. Single. My married wife of 5 years was on a dating app claiming to be single. "Ryan, say something," Jake urged. I couldn't speak. I could barely breathe. I stared at those photos. Pictures I'd watched her take had probably even helped her choose for Instagram, now being used to attract other men. The casual lie about her relationship status. The deliberate misrepresentation of her age. This wasn't a mistake or an accident. This was intentional deception. "When did you match?" I asked, my voice sounding strange, distant. 3 days ago, he answered. "She hasn't messaged me yet, but she swiped right on me, which means she's actively looking," I finished, handing back his phone, my hands steadier than I felt. "How long has the profile been active?" "Based on Tinder's activity indicators, at least 3 weeks. Maybe more," he replied. 3 weeks. While I'd been working 60-hour weeks, pushing for that promotion, coming home to kiss her cheek and ask about her day, she'd been shopping for my replacement. The woman who complained about being bored, who said she felt lonely, who wanted me to understand that she needed more excitement in her life. She'd decided to find it behind my back. "We can't confront her yet," I said, surprised by how calm I sounded. Inside, I felt like I was falling through space, but my mind was already shifting into problem-solving mode. This could be explained away. She could claim it was just fantasy, just boredom, that she never intended to actually meet anyone. Jake nodded slowly. "What do you want to do?" he asked. "We need more evidence," I answered. "Create another profile, completely different from yours. If she matches with a total stranger and starts a conversation, then we know this isn't just curiosity. It's active betrayal." "Ryan," he began. "Do it, Jake," I interrupted. "Different photos, different name, different everything. I need to know how far she's willing to go." We walked back to the house in silence. Shannon was in bed when I got there, reading a book, looking perfectly innocent. She asked how Jake was doing, made casual conversation about our walk, kissed me goodnight like she had thousands of times before. I lay awake until 3 in the morning, staring at the ceiling, listening to her peaceful breathing, and wondering how long she'd been planning this. How many lies had she told? How many times had she kissed me goodbye in the morning and spent her day looking for someone else? 2 days later, Jake called with the words that sealed Shannon's fate. She matched with me. Jake's voice on the phone was steady, but I could hear the anger underneath. "She's talking to me, Ryan. She's flirting." She told this fake version of me that she's single and looking for someone who appreciates her, he reported. I felt something inside me die. And something else, something darker, take its place. The coffee shop was nearly empty at 2 in the afternoon on a Wednesday. I'd taken a long lunch, telling my foreman I had a dental appointment. Jake was already at a corner table when I arrived. 2 printed folders in front of him and an expression I'd never seen before. Part brother, part investigator, part executioner. "Show me everything," I said without preamble. He opened the first folder. Screenshots printed in chronological order, showing the entire conversation between Shannon and Cole, the fake profile we'd created using photos of Jake's college friend who now lived in Germany. The messages started innocuous enough, basic getting-to-know-you questions, but escalated quickly into territory that made me sick. "I'm so bored during the day," Shannon had written. "My husband works constantly and doesn't really understand what I need." "What do you need?" Cole had responded. "Excitement. Passion. Someone who sees me as more than just a housekeeper," she'd replied. 3 days of messages. Shannon complaining about our marriage, about me, painting herself as a neglected wife trapped in a passionless relationship. She'd sent selfies, some taken in our bedroom, others in the kitchen where I made her coffee every morning. The casual way she shared intimate details about our life, our problems, our private moments, felt like a violation beyond the actual cheating. "There's more," Jake said quietly, opening the second folder. "She's been messaging other guys too. I found at least 4 different conversations going back 3 weeks. My hands went numb. It wasn't just about finding excitement or fighting boredom. Shannon was actively shopping for my replacement, interviewing candidates, seeing what was available. The systematic nature of it was almost worse than the betrayal itself. "I called Richard Baker this morning," I informed him. Richard was a divorce attorney I'd met through work. He'd handled the legal issues when one of our contractors got divorced and tried to hide assets from his wife. Richard had seen it all, and more importantly, he'd won. Jake raised an eyebrow. "Already?" he asked. "I'm not going to confront Shannon based on suspicion and hope she tells me the truth," I explained. "She's been lying to my face for weeks, Jake. She's not going to suddenly develop honesty when caught." I pulled out my own folder, notes from my conversation with Richard. "I need this airtight." Richard had been thorough during our hour-long consultation. The Tinder profile, the messages, the documented lies about being single, all of it constituted clear evidence of intent to commit adultery. Even though Shannon hadn't physically met anyone yet, the deliberate deception and active pursuit of extramarital relationships gave me significant advantage in divorce proceedings. More importantly, Richard had walked me through the financial reality. The house was in my name, purchased 6 months before our marriage with money I'd saved from my previous job. Our savings account was built entirely from my income over the past 5 years. Shannon had no job, no separate assets, no financial independence whatsoever. She'd been completely dependent on me, and now that dependence would work in my favor. "What's the plan?" Jake asked. "We let Cole ask her to meet in person," I answered. "If she agrees, we have her. No way to claim it was just fantasy or harmless flirting. The moment she shows up to a date with another man, the intent becomes action." Jake nodded grimly. "Where should Cole suggest?" he inquired. I'd already thought about this. "Marcello's, Sunday night." 7 o'clock, I replied. "Your restaurant? The place you two go for anniversaries?" he questioned. "Our restaurant," I corrected. "I want her to be confronted in a place that represents everything she's about to lose. I want the irony to be perfect. The next few days were torture." I went through the motions of normal life while Jake continued the conversation with Shannon as Cole. Every evening, I'd come home to find my wife cooking dinner, asking about my day, complaining about being bored, never knowing that I knew she'd spent her afternoon flirting with strangers and planning to betray our marriage. The close calls nearly broke my resolve. Thursday evening, Shannon was in the shower when her phone buzzed on the bathroom counter. Through the frosted glass, I could see the Tinder notification. My hands shook as I resisted the urge to grab the phone and confront her immediately. Friday night, she caught me staring at my phone with what must have been obvious rage. "Is everything okay?" she asked with concern. I blamed work stress, made up some story about a difficult client. "Just work problems," I replied. "Nothing I can't handle." Saturday, Shannon mentioned she might visit her friend Sarah on Sunday evening. Maybe grab dinner and go shopping, she said casually. You don't mind, do you? The lie came so easily, so practiced. I wondered how many other lies I'd believed, how many times she'd perfected this performance. Of course not, I replied. Have fun. That afternoon, Jake texted me. Cole suggested dinner tomorrow at Marcello's. She said yes. 7 p.m. It's happening. I spent Saturday night in the garage, hitting the heavy bag I'd installed years ago. Physical exhaustion was the only thing that kept me from driving to Shannon's parents' house and telling them what their daughter had become. By Sunday morning, the rage had crystallized into something colder, more focused. Justice was coming. Sunday morning, I watched my wife get ready for her date with another man. She tried on 3 different outfits, did her makeup with more care than she'd shown in months, sprayed the perfume I'd bought her for Christmas. She was preparing to betray me with the same attention she'd once used to impress me, and she had no idea I'd be waiting for her. Sunday unfolded like the last day of my old life. I woke at 6, as I had every morning for years, but instead of the familiar routine of coffee and news, I found myself standing at the bedroom window watching Shannon sleep. She looked peaceful, almost innocent. Dark hair spread across the pillow I'd bought when we first moved in together. How many mornings had I stood exactly here feeling grateful for the life we'd built? How many times had I looked at her and thought I was the luckiest man alive? Now all I could think was, this is the last time I'll see her as my wife. After tonight, she'd be a stranger who'd once shared my bed. I went to the gym early, needing to burn off the energy that felt like electricity under my skin. 2 hours on weights, 30 minutes of cardio, until sweat had washed away the last traces of sentiment. This wasn't about emotion anymore. This was about justice. Shannon was making pancakes when I returned, humming something I didn't recognize, moving around the kitchen with unusual lightness. She'd always been beautiful, but there was something different about her this morning. Anticipation. Maybe excitement. She was looking forward to tonight. You seem happy, I observed, testing her. Just a good day, she replied without looking up from the stove. Sometimes you wake up feeling like something good is going to happen, you know? Something good. Her husband's betrayal. Her marriage's destruction. Her life's complete upheaval. That was her idea of something good. We spent the afternoon in careful normalcy. Shannon did laundry while I watched football. Neither of us really present. She kept checking her phone. Cole had confirmed their 7 o'clock reservation, sent a message saying he was looking forward to meeting her in person. Each notification made her smile, a private expression I wasn't supposed to see. At 5:30, she announced she was going upstairs to get ready for Sarah. Have fun with your friend, I said. The lie hung between us like smoke. I watched her climb the stairs, each step taking her closer to her own destruction. My phone buzzed. Jake, confirming he was already positioned at Marcello's, had requested the table near the window where he could see everything unfold. Shannon came down 45 minutes later wearing a black dress I'd never seen before. It was sophisticated, expensive looking, the kind of thing she'd wear to a wedding or anniversary dinner. Her makeup was flawless, hair professionally styled, wearing the diamond earrings I'd bought her for our 3rd anniversary. She looked stunning. She looked like a woman preparing for seduction. Wow, I said, and meant it. Sarah's going to be underdressed. Shannon laughed, the sound bright and false. I just felt like getting dressed up, she replied. We might go somewhere nice after shopping. Another lie, delivered with practiced ease. I wondered how long she'd been perfecting this skill, how many deceptions I'd swallowed without question. She kissed my cheek, the same casual goodbye she'd given me thousands of times, and said, I'll probably be late. Don't wait up. Don't wait up. Because she expected to be busy. Because she thought she'd be starting a new chapter of her life tonight, one that didn't include me. I watched her car pull out of the driveway and immediately checked the Find My Friends app we'd installed for safety years ago. Her phone showed her route heading downtown toward Marcello's. Not toward Sarah's house across town, not toward any shopping center. The digital evidence confirmed what I already knew. Every word she'd said was a lie. I showered and dressed carefully. Dark jeans, button-down shirt, the watch Shannon had bought me for Christmas. I wanted to look composed when I confronted her, in control, like a man who'd made calculated decisions, not one driven by rage. The drive to Marcello's took 12 minutes. I parked where I could see the entrance and waited. 7:03, Shannon's car pulled into the lot. Through the restaurant's large front window, I watched her get seated at a table for two. She ordered something, probably water she never drank before eating, and checked her phone. She was nervous. Good. Jake's text came at exactly 7:10. She's here. Keeps checking her phone. Thinks Cole is running late. Time to go. I looked at myself in the rearview mirror. The man staring back was different from the one who'd woken up this morning. Harder. More certain. Ready. It was 7 p.m. Time's up. I looked at Jake across the parking lot. He nodded. We got out of our cars simultaneously and walked toward the restaurant entrance. This was it, the moment Shannon's entire world would collapse. And she was sitting there, smiling at her phone, completely unaware that her husband was about to destroy her. The hostess at Marcello's recognized me immediately. Shannon and I had been regulars for 3 years, celebrating anniversaries, birthdays, promotions. "Good evening, Mr. Mitchell. Are you meeting Mrs. Mitchell tonight?" she asked cheerfully. "Something like that," I answered. Walking past her with Jake beside me, Shannon was exactly where Jake had said she'd be, at a table near the large front window, dressed to kill and checking her phone with barely contained excitement. She was living in the last moments of her old life, completely unaware that her husband and brother-in-law were walking straight toward her with evidence of every lie she'd told. The moment she saw me, her face transformed like I'd flipped a switch. First confusion. What was Ryan doing here? Then recognition of the danger. Then absolute terror as her mind raced through the implications. "Ryan?" she gasped, standing up so fast her chair scraped against the floor, her voice loud enough to turn heads at nearby tables. "What are you doing here?" "Hello, Shannon," I said, my voice carrying perfectly in the restaurant's acoustics. I'd planned this moment for days, rehearsed it, but actually seeing her sitting there waiting for another man still sent rage through my veins like fire. "I'm here because I knew you'd be here, waiting for your date." "What?" "No, I told you. I'm meeting Sarah," she protested. "You're waiting for Cole," I interrupted, loud enough for the tables around us to hear clearly. "The man you met on Tinder. The man you've been messaging for over a week. The man you told that you're single and looking for someone who appreciates you." Shannon's face went white. Her mouth opened and closed without sound, like a fish drowning in air. She looked from me to Jake, trying to process how we could possibly know, how her perfect secret had been exposed. That's when Jake stepped forward and placed his phone on the table, screen facing Shannon. The conversation thread between her and Cole filled the display. Every flirty message, every lie about being single, every photo she'd sent, every complaint about her boring husband. "Recognize these?" Jake asked quietly. Shannon stared at the phone like it was evidence of murder, which, in a way, it was. Evidence of the murder of our marriage. The conversation went back a week. Dozens of messages, escalating intimacy, plans for tonight's meeting. Undeniable proof of deliberate infidelity. "This isn't what it looks like," she whispered, but her voice had no conviction. Even she knew how ridiculous that sounded. "Really?" I replied, keeping my voice level, controlled. "Then explain it to me, Shannon. Explain how you created a Tinder profile claiming to be single. Explain how you matched with my brother." I gestured to Jake. "And when that wasn't enough excitement, you matched with multiple other men, including Cole here. Explain how you arranged to meet a stranger for dinner while telling me you were visiting Sarah." By now, half the restaurant was watching our drama unfold. The couple at the next table had stopped eating entirely. The server hovering nearby had clearly decided to wait before approaching. Shannon noticed the attention, and her face flushed with humiliation. "I was just bored," she stammered, her voice breaking. It was just fantasy. I wasn't actually going to do anything. You're sitting here waiting for him. I cut her off. You lied to your husband, got dressed up like you're going to a wedding, and drove to this restaurant for a date with another man. Those aren't fantasies, Shannon. Those are actions. Deliberate, calculated actions. Ryan, please, she begged, reaching for my hand, but I stepped back. I love you. I swear I love you. This was just a stupid mistake. A mistake? Jake interjected, his voice cold with anger. You spent weeks creating this profile, messaging multiple men, arranging this meeting. You lied every single day for weeks. Those aren't mistakes, Shannon. Those are choices. Shannon looked around desperately, as if someone in the restaurant might defend her, might tell her husband he was being unreasonable. But everyone just stared, witnessing a marriage implode in real time. Some looked horrified, others fascinated. All of them were judging her. Please, she pleaded, tears starting now. Please, can we go home and talk about this privately? We can work through this. I'll delete everything. I'll do anything. No, I answered firmly. I pulled out my phone and showed her the first page of the divorce papers Richard had prepared, his law firm's letterhead clearly visible. I've already filed for divorce, Shannon. You'll be served tomorrow morning. I want you out of my house tonight. You can't. That's my house too, she protested. It's my house, I corrected. Purchased before our marriage. In my name only. Paid for with my income while you sat at home planning to cheat on me. And you've committed adultery, which I have documented evidence of. I gestured to Jake's phone. You have no legal claim to anything. Shannon's composure completely cracked. She looked around the restaurant at all the strangers watching her world fall apart, then back at me with pure desperation. This is insane. You're humiliating me over a dating app. I'm not humiliating you, I stated firmly. You humiliated yourself. You humiliated our marriage. You made choices, and now you're facing consequences. Adult consequences for adult decisions. Where am I supposed to go? She asked desperately. Your parents' house, I answered. The papers are being served there tomorrow morning. That's your address now. I turned toward the exit, Jake following. Don't come to the house tonight, Shannon. The locks are being changed as we speak. As we walked away, I could hear Shannon sobbing openly, the sound echoing through the restaurant. Other diners were murmuring, some taking out phones. By tomorrow, half our social circle would know what happened. Shannon's reputation, her comfortable life, her position in our community, all of it was crashing down around her. Outside in the cool evening air, Jake gripped my shoulder. You did it, brother. You held it together. How do you feel? He asked. I took a deep breath, surprised to find that the rage had transformed into something else. Not satisfaction exactly, but a sense of completion. Justice served. I feel like I can finally move forward, I replied. My phone started buzzing immediately. Shannon calling, probably from the restaurant parking lot. I declined the call. She called again. Again. I turned off my phone and drove home. The locksmith was waiting when I arrived, a 24-hour service I'd arranged that morning. By midnight, every lock on the house was changed. By 1 a.m., Shannon arrived and found herself locked out of what had been her home for 5 years. I watched from the upstairs window as she pounded on the door, screaming my name, demanding I let her in. I didn't answer. After an hour of hysterics, she finally left. I watched her taillights disappear down the street, carrying her away from the life she'd thrown away. Tomorrow, the real consequences would begin, but tonight, for the first time in 2 weeks, I slept soundly. The divorce papers were signed and notarized on a cold Tuesday morning in February, exactly 4 months after that night at Marcello's. I remember sitting in Richard Baker's office, watching Shannon's shaking hand sign away her claim to everything we'd built together. She'd lost 12 pounds since the confrontation, her face gaunt and hollow, wearing a cheap department store dress, instead of the designer clothes she'd grown accustomed to during our marriage. Her lawyer, a court-appointed legal aid attorney, since she couldn't afford private representation, had tried every angle. Temporary insanity, emotional distress, claims that I'd been neglectful and emotionally absent, driving her to seek companionship elsewhere. But the evidence was overwhelming. The Tinder profile, the documented lies, Jake's testimony, the messages with multiple men spanning 3 weeks. It painted a clear picture of deliberate, calculated infidelity. The judge, an older woman with steel-gray hair and no patience for deception, reviewed everything methodically. "Mrs. Mitchell," she had said, "you created a dating profile claiming to be single while married to the plaintiff. You engaged in intimate conversations with multiple men, arranged to meet at least one of them for what was clearly intended as a romantic encounter, and lied repeatedly to your husband about your whereabouts and intentions. This court finds clear evidence of adultery and deliberate marital misconduct. Shannon got nothing. No alimony. She'd been the unfaithful party. No portion of the house, purchased in my name before marriage. No significant asset division. I'd been the sole earner for 5 years. She walked away from our marriage with her personal belongings and the car she'd been driving, which was paid for with my money anyway. The social consequences were swift and brutal. Word of the Marcellos' confrontation spread through our circle like wildfire. Shannon had tried to control the narrative on social media, posting vague statements about misunderstandings and growing apart, but too many people had witnessed the truth. She became a cautionary tale, the woman who destroyed a good marriage through pure selfishness. Her parents were mortified. Her father, a traditional man who'd always treated me like the son he'd never had, could barely look at Shannon for the first year. Her mother was more sympathetic, but even she had to acknowledge that Shannon had made her own bed. The comfortable life as a cherished daughter-in-law was over. Shannon moved into their basement, taking a minimum-wage job at a retail store, her first employment in years. Meanwhile, my relationship with Jake grew stronger. He'd proven himself when it mattered most. Standing by me when discovering Shannon's betrayal could have torn our family apart. We'd always been close, but the crisis had forged something unbreakable between us. Our weekly dinners became a sacred tradition. When I eventually remarried, Jake was my best man. Just as he'd been at my first wedding, but this time, he was protecting something real. For the first year after the divorce, I focused entirely on rebuilding myself. The promotion I'd been working toward came through 6 months after Shannon left. Work became my sanctuary, complex projects, demanding deadlines, tangible problems with clear solutions. I joined a gym, started running, traveled to places Shannon had never wanted to visit. I learned to be complete by myself before looking for someone else. When I did start dating again, everything was different. I was cautious but not bitter, protective but not paranoid. I sought out women with their own careers, their own goals, their own reasons to be in a relationship beyond financial security or lifestyle upgrade. I was honest about my past, not dwelling on it, not playing victim, just stating facts. Some women were intimidated by the story. Others respected that I'd handled it with dignity rather than destructive rage. 2 years after the divorce, I met Catherine at a construction industry networking event. She was an architect with her own firm, intelligent and independent, someone who understood the value of building things that last. We talked for hours that first night about design principles, structural integrity, the satisfaction of creating something permanent. She'd been through her own divorce, different circumstances, but she understood that trust, once broken, required action to rebuild. We married last spring in a small ceremony with close friends and family. Jake was my best man again. And yes, we signed a prenuptial agreement, not because I expected Catherine to betray me, but because I'd learned that protection isn't about distrust, it's about wisdom. Catherine agreed without hesitation. She had her own assets to protect. Now, 5 years after that night at Marcello's, I'm genuinely happy. My career has flourished. I'm now director of project management, overseeing multi-million-dollar developments. My marriage to Catherine is everything my first marriage wasn't. Equal, honest, built on mutual respect rather than dependency. We travel together, make decisions together, face challenges together. We're planning to start a family next year. Shannon sent an email 18 months ago asking for closure, wanting to meet and discuss what had happened between us. I deleted it without responding. There was nothing she could say that would matter. She'd made her choices. and now she was living with the consequences. Some people ask if I regret how quickly I acted, if I should have tried counseling or given Shannon a second chance. The answer is simple. Shannon wasn't caught making a mistake. She was caught in the middle of actively pursuing an affair. The Tinder profile wasn't an accident. The messages to multiple men weren't moments of weakness. The arranged meeting wasn't a fantasy. Those were conscious choices made over 3 weeks with clear intent to destroy our marriage. I did what I needed to do. I protected myself, my future, and my dignity. I walked away with my head high and my integrity intact, and I've never looked back.